What's up, everybody? Welcome back. We are here with some more NFL DFS picks and lineup advice for tonight's single game showdown slate on DraftKings and FanDuel. Monday Night Football Week 6, Los Angeles Chargers, Dallas Cowboys. Welcome. I am Brian Jester, co-founder here at Occupy Fantasy, single game $1 million winner. In these videos, we talk about the injuries that impact this showdown slate, low risk lineup construction tips, and strategies to help get you to the top of those high risk, large field GPP contest leaderboards to win those big prizes. So let's get started. Let's not waste any time. And we'll start with the injuries on both teams tonight. And we'll start with Dallas. And a few injuries to think about with Dallas. Let's start at the bottom of the pricing table. Cavante Turpin, who was initially diagnosed with a high ankle sprain. And there were even official reports saying that he was expected to be out 4 to 6 weeks. Somehow they were wrong. I don't know how that happens. He only had a low ankle sprain. He practiced in full, and he's not even on the injury report this week. So he's going to play tonight. We know he gets design plays. He is $1,600 on DraftKings. So despite the reports we saw during the week and earlier in the week, Vontae Turpin will play tonight for Dallas. Peyton Hendershot, one of their tight ends, he is on injured reserve. Didn't play last week, but officially placed on injured reserve tonight. And if we look at routes last week, while it wasn't a huge number, and it was a little bit of a blowout, Jake Ferguson ran 22 routes. And now backup complimentary tight end Luke Schoonmaker, probably pronounced that wrong. I'm sorry, Luke. But he ran 5 routes last week. But we look at his targets, a target in each of the last 4 games for Luke here. So at $200, somebody to consider in the largest contest. And now an injury that won't impact the player pool, but certainly should impact some of our player selections, is Dallas linebacker Leighton Vander Esch. He's been placed on injured reserve, one of their star linebackers, one of their star defenders. Remember, they're already down Diggs, their corner. Now they're down Vander Esch as well. And again, he helps more in the run game. And while some beat reporters are mostly just fans that watch practice and watch the games every week, there are some that are more in tune. Either way, a lot of the Cowboys beat reporters are frantic about this injury to Vander Esch, how they're going to replace him, especially in the run game. There have even been talks of Micah Parsons, who played linebacker in college, but has been obviously a beast rushing the passer in his NFL career. Maybe he would even take some linebacker snaps. I don't know how it's all going to work out. All I know is it's not great for the Dallas defense, and especially for this week, it's good for the Chargers' run game. All right, on the Chargers side, let's look here. And we have on defense, let's start with defense. Joey Bosa, I think he's still likely to be out, officially questionable. Only got in one limited practice. They had the bye last week, only one limited practice this week with his toe injury. He's likely going to be out. But they do get Derwin James back, so that's a big boost to their defense. Let's see here. The big news, obviously, is Austin Eckler returning. I have him in the lineup right now. The highest priced player on the board, high ankle sprain early in the season, in week 1. Missed a few weeks. He admitted he was going to take his time, make sure he was fully recovered. And on his podcast that he does every week with Matt Harmon, he said that during the bye week, if they had a game, he would have been good enough to play last week. Now he's good enough 100% to play this week against the Cowboys. And generally, I'm a little cautious when it comes to running backs off that high ankle sprain. Generally, they come back a week early. There's a lot of re-aggravation risk. There's a lot of performance risk. But it sounds like Eckler actually got the extra week that most backs don't take or don't have the luxury of taking. So it sounds like he's fully good to go and should be fine here. And we should expect him back in his normal role tonight. That pretty much leaves Joshua Kelly as the most overpriced player we've seen. But again, this is the DraftKings pricing dynamic I talked about in the last couple of videos, where they price up the backups or the role players in an effort not to make them underpriced if the starter misses. So Kelly at $6,400, no one's going to play him there because if Eckler's in, he probably should be priced at like $2K or something. So the other injury that popped up late in the week is, let's find him here. There he is, Joshua Palmer. Saturday's practice popped up on the injury report with a groin injury, officially questionable to go. We have no real word on this. This could go one way or the other. All we know is he was added to the injury report. Beat reporters don't know anything. However, we will probably know by 4 p.m. Eastern today, because if Palmer is indeed trending towards missing this game, they will call up someone off the practice squad, a receiver off the practice squad. And that should be an indication to us that Palmer's not ready to go. I would just lean towards him playing. It's not like he's doubtful. We've seen some of these types of Saturday editions earlier this season for different teams, and most of those guys have ended up playing. I think Palmer will as well, but again, it's something we have to monitor. If he misses, Quentin Johnson will be the number 2 wide receiver, and then there's some other guys to mix in for that wide receiver 3 spot. So let's monitor that. Other positional player on the injury report is Donald Parham. $2,200 has been used around the goal line a lot this year. Officially questionable with his wrist injury, but he practiced in full both Friday and Saturday. Sounds like he's good to go. But again, just something to keep in mind. Maybe we get a surprise inactive late. That would open up some of the $200 tight ends on Los Angeles for a large field contest. I don't think we'll have to worry about it. It sounds like Parham will play. All right, so those are the injuries. That's how they impact the slate. Now let's talk about low-risk contests, 50-50s, double-ups, head-to-heads. Just have to beat half the field to double your money. I say this every week. If you're a weekly viewer, you probably get tired of hearing this. But if you're new here, got to say it for you. We talk about 2 different strategies for low-risk contests, either trying to lock up all of the scoring by playing both quarterbacks from both teams and both running backs, or we try to play the values. This week it's a little tough. By the way, if you want more information about that strategy and other showdown strategies, make sure you read our showdown strategy guide. The link is in the description below. And tonight, it's extremely difficult. One, because we have a lot of studs on the slate. Anytime there are a lot of studs, it is difficult to play low-risk contests on both FanDuel and DraftKings. So Eckler, Herbert, Keenan Allen. Let's actually put both teams in here. Dak Prescott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb. Like all these guys, high volume, whether it's in the run game or the pass game, and quarterbacks, goal line work. All these guys, any of them could be the high scorer. Leaving any out feels kind of unsafe. And if you're playing, you have to pick 3 of these guys and leave out a couple. So let's say Herbert, Eckler, Prescott. You could do this, right? But that leaves out Allen, Pollard, Lamb. Maybe you can get one more here. If you let's try this actually. Yeah, you really can't do that. The one guy who is a true value that opens up some options is Michael Gallup. Has the same amount of expected fantasy points over the last 3 weeks as his teammates, both CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Cooks. But for some reason, he is priced at $2,800 on DraftKings tonight. He's going to be an extremely popular low-risk play, an extremely popular small field play, and he'll be popular in large field contests as well. He's a guy that in these smaller contests, in smaller GPPs, and definitely in low risk, a guy that we want to get in on DraftKings specifically to help pay for some other guys. Let's see here. What if we put in Pollard, 800? Either way, you have to leave out the stud receivers. You have to leave out a quarterback. I don't think there's a clear way to play low-risk contest tonight. If you can find a way or if something else opens up tonight, then you certainly can. The other issue here is that the kickers are priced up. Brandon Aubrey, $5K. I think it's the most expensive kicker we've seen this year. $5K for a kicker. Normally they're in the $3 to $4K, mostly the $4K range. Dicker, $4,400. So it's not like we get much salary savings with these guys either. And most people are going to opt to play Michael Gallup anyways. Now in FanDuel, we have just as similar of a problem where if we want to play, let's say the top 3 guys, that's $6K per player. We know that's not a profitable strategy. If you do play low-risk contests, Dak is underpriced based on his position, his projection, and his salary. So at $1,300, Dak's the guy you want to get either in the MVP or the flex for your low-risk contest. I'm not sure why he's priced at $13K, probably because he had a horrible game in primetime last week against the 49ers. Much different game this time around. But you still have to decide between Eckler, Allen, Herbert, Lamb, Pollard. No super obvious value like Gallup over on DraftKings. Actually, if we scroll down, we actually see Gallup's $8K and Cooks is $7,500. So much different pricing on both sites tonight. So when I talk about Gallup being a value, I am referring to DraftKings specifically for this slate. Yeah, I don't know, man. I think it's tough. I think this is a very tough low-risk slate. For me, this type of slate, I would say avoid. Maybe you can find some head-to-heads for opponents without experience badges. Maybe some really soft, smaller field double-ups. But for me, too many ways you can go here. I don't think there's a clear answer. And for me, I would say I recommend avoiding low-risk contests tonight. Instead, let's talk about high-risk contests, GPPs, satellites, leagues, payouts that are exponential, huge paydays. You have to beat a lot of people to get a lot of money. That's why almost all of you tune in anyways. So let's talk about it. Let's go back to DraftKings. I'll give you some angles, some players that I'm thinking about for this game for high-risk contests. And just I'll lay them out. Now, if you want in-depth information for all the plays, all of our strategies, make sure you check out our daily plug this afternoon. Our writer Bismo does a great job on Mondays and Thursdays. Basically ranks players for every contest type on both sites, gives more slate notes than I can give out in this video. And then he also talks about lineup construction tips for individual contest types Very specific contest types on both DraftKings and FanDuel. Basically, your roadmap, easily digestible format. Make sure you check it out. The link is in the description below. It's posted maybe 3-4 hours before game time, so make sure you check it out. All right. Now, I know I get a lot of shit for talking about how the field builds lineups and how you can pivot by building different types of lineups. And I just want to say that last night was a fantastic example of that because if I'm not mistaken, I have to go back and check our records, but last night had the lowest combined ownership for one team on a showdown slate. The Giants were huge underdogs. A vast majority of the field built 5-1 Bills lineups on DraftKings, 4-1 on FanDuel. Uh, a few less built 4-2 lineups. Either way, they were all Buffalo heavy. Very few lineups had multiple Giants players in them. Yet, 2 people split the top prize on DraftKings and only, I think, 4 on FanDuel because they entered lineups with multiple Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson, Saquon Barkley, who else? I think that was it. Slayton was in a couple of smaller GPP winning lineups. So while, yes, it looks gross and we think that this cannot possibly happen before a game starts, it certainly can. So if we think about tonight's game, it's a close spread, lots of studs on both sides. It's going to be mostly balanced. And I think if there is a lean in one direction, it will probably be Dallas heavy. So on DraftKings, what does that mean? Maybe we see a couple 5-1 Dallas lineups. Maybe we see some 4-2. On FanDuel, 3-2 in favor of Dallas. But a vast majority of people are going to build in that 3-3, so 3 players from one team, 3 from the other, 4 players from one team, 2 from the other, in that range. No one is really going to build on slots, 5-1 stacks, 4-1 on FanDuel. So that's obviously number one way. If you want to get different constructually, if you're not too sure, you don't like too many low-owned players, you like a lot of what the field likes, you can get different just by playing heavier on those onslaught type of lineups. And the nice thing is, just because they're built a certain way, it doesn't necessarily mean that that team has to blow out the other team. It just could mean scoring is spread out on the one side, on the 5 side, while scoring is concentrated on the one side. A lot of different ways. Even though you can tell one story, it can still hit even if that story doesn't hold. So lineup construction ways, if you want to get different in larger contests, build multiple lineups with 4 guys, 5 guys from one team, whether it's Dallas or the Chargers. Let's think about some other options here. And again, as I said, in low risk, there's so many stud options to pick from. Now, if you're playing smaller field GPPs, let's say less than 500 players, and you're building multiple lineups, I know a lot of you build 3 to 10, 3 to 12, 3 to 20 lineups and spread them out to different small field GPPs. I know I do. And on these types of slates, what has been more profitable, looking at historical results, is spreading out your captain ownership. So let's say you're making 10 lineups tonight, and you're putting them all into GPPs that have less than 1,000 players. You're spreading out different ones, satellites, whatever it may be, right? Maybe you'll put 1 or 2 with Eckler, 1 or 2 with Herbert at captain, 1 or 2 with Allen, 1 or 2 with Prescott, 1 or 2 with Pollard, 1 or 2 with Lamb, maybe 1 with Gallup. Really spreading it out. That way you have all those bases covered, and you have a chance, no matter which captain hits, if one of those lineups hit. And honestly, if the scoring is pretty balanced, all of your lineups will have a chance to get near the top. However, in larger contests, you really don't want to spread it out that thin, right? You don't have a simulation. I assume you don't. You're watching this video. So you can't really build optimally using so many different captains. Really what you want to do, pick a couple of captains and really go all in if you're playing the larger contest, the 100,000 player GPPs. This one has 100,000, 132,000 people. The FanDuel one has 92,000 people. Just pick a couple and go all in. Whether you like Eckler, whether you like Keenan, the quarterbacks, whoever it is, go all in. 2, maybe 4 captains. The less is better, right? I would say pick a couple, go all in the larger contest. Smaller contests, you can spread out your captain allocation. Larger contests, you want to hone in on a couple. Try to cycle in as many combinations as you can. Because if you're right, now you have a bunch of combinations that can hit, as opposed to trying to thread the needle with 10 different captains or 10 different MVPs. All right, now let's talk about some specific players. Maybe give you some ideas into guys I like, that the numbers like, aside from what our model is saying on our site. Let's talk about underperformers. These are guys who not necessarily are underperforming wide receivers, which are an official metric for Occupy Fantasy, but maybe some other guys who either don't quite fit the bill by that definition or just are due for some more touchdown variance. The number one guy, let's go back to DraftKings, who is actually an underperforming wide receiver, is Joshua Palmer. So ideally, we hope he's healthy, but his numbers and his opportunities say that he should have scored way more fantasy points through the last few weeks than his actual game logs show. And again, with Mike Williams out halfway through that Minnesota game, still 26 total fantasy points through 2 games. That's not bad at all. Numbers say he should have scored a lot more. So if he's healthy, he's a guy that we want to play a decent amount of and get overweight to the field, assuming that he can capitalize on those opportunities. Next, we have Brandon Cooks, who just missed our underperforming wide receiver list, but he actually doesn't have enough volume to qualify. So that says one thing, right? He should have more fantasy points, but it's not like they're using him a ton. Let's look at his game log. I mean, he scored less than 7 fantasy points in every single game this season. That is not great, but he should have scored more, right? And at 5,400, not a completely prohibitive price. If he capitalizes, and let's say he scores double-digit fantasy points, that is a path to the optimal lineup. And numbers say that he should have had at least a couple of games with double-digit fantasy points. So why not play him tonight in hopes that that does hit? And again, that would be great leverage over his teammate, especially on DraftKings, Michael Gallup. And finally, we have Tony Pollard, who is completely underperforming. We talked about A.J. Dillon needing a touchdown to even up his variance, to close that delta between expected and actual fantasy points. He scored a touchdown in that video against the Raiders. And Tony Pollard is due for a monster game. Let's look at his game logs. Based on his opportunities, based on where he's getting the ball. I mean, we look at, obviously last week is an anomaly with the blowout against San Francisco, but he had 2 touchdowns in week 1 against the Giants and has not had a touchdown since, despite having, let's count these out, 48 plus 19, 67 rush attempts. Let's count the targets out. 19 targets. So we're talking near close to 100 total opportunities without a touchdown for Tony Pollard. He's due for some big ones. This should be a competitive game, high total game. Pollard's a guy I mentioned you want to go overweight on just a couple of guys. Pollard seems like the ideal guy that his ownership may not match his true upside potential based on some of the down games he's had in the last couple of weeks. Numbers say he's due for a monster performance. So Tony Pollard's a guy that we like a lot tonight. If we look at overperformers, it's Keenan Allen, but a lot of the stud receivers in this category are overperformers because they're, guess what? They're good at football. So I think with Eckler back tonight, it does ding Keenan Allen a little bit. His target shares have been outrageous. I mean, we look at the 20 targets against Minnesota. He did have only 5 against Vegas in a game they didn't have to throw much. But that Minnesota game is a pure outlier here. Can he score 48 fantasy points again, 34 like he did in week 2? Sure. But with Eckler back, the numbers saying he probably trends back to his median a little bit, which is more like that 14 to 20 range and not necessarily the 34 to 48 range. So I think if there's a guy I would fade near the top, it's Allen. But we've seen guys like Diggs was in a similar spot last night, and he was still optimal in a lower scoring game. 10 catches, 100 yards. Same thing for Allen, right? I'm not saying he's a complete fade, but if you have to make a decision, you're looking for a tiebreaker, maybe the fact that Eckler's back and Allen should score less than he's been scoring. It's probably a good reason to break the tie against whoever you're matching him up with. All right, a couple other guys down at the bottom. We talked about Turpin already, getting design plays. He is $1,600. We also can't forget about Darius Davis, who also is getting design touches. I keep saying divine. It must be meant to be. Designed opportunities. We saw the 3 rush attempts last week, multiple targets. When they put him on the field, they put him in motion. It's clear that when they put him on the field, they want to use him in some capacity. The rookie receiver. So he's a guy, $1,400, a good pivot down there. If he can break one, returns kicks as well. So you also have that outside opportunity. Darius Davis, less than 5% owned. Large field GPP play only. And if Palmer is banged up or limited in any ways, maybe he gets even more snaps. So just something to think about. And finally, talked about Pollard being due and a guy that I like to go overweight on. The last one is Eckler, who I had in the lineup at the beginning of the video. And mentions his injury, he should be fully healthy. You combine that with Leighton Vander Esch's injury on defense, and you combine it with industry projections. If you look around the industry, we have access to a lot of industry projections. He's being projected for as many, but mostly less points than the other guys priced below him. Herbert, Allen, Prescott, and even some of these other guys based on the site that you're looking at. So we expect Eckler's ownership to be relatively low despite his high salary. And for me, that's a perfect storm for a guy who's a round 1 pick in fantasy in season-long drafts, should be fully healthy. Defense is missing one of their best run defenders. and an important part of their defense just overall. And he's going to have lower ownership. So Eckler is another guy that I think if you're limiting your captain MVP pool in larger contests, or if you're playing one lineup, Eckler's a guy that I would probably lean towards first. So that'll do it for this video. Talked about the daily plug already. Our Occupy model is up with projected ownership for tonight, as is our lineup builder that allows you to build up to 300 lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings using our optimal lineup criteria. And if you're not already, make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. It is free to do so. Obviously, it helps us out. The more subscribers we get, it's great. Allows us to create more videos, obviously, honestly. So it definitely helps us out, but it helps you out as well. It's mutually beneficial. You'll get notified when we post these videos. Sometimes we go live, sometimes we pre-record. If you are subscribed and have the notifications on, you'll get notified as soon as those decisions are made. So do us a favor, if you're not already, click that subscribe button. Give us a thumbs up if you like the content. If you don't like the content, don't give us a thumbs up. That simple. Just lets us know that you like it, that we should continue to do these videos every single week and every single slate. The thumbs up is the best way to indicate that. Any questions, I will monitor the channel throughout the day. Comment on the video below with any questions you have about the slate. If you want to make predictions, we love seeing your predictions. And I know a lot of people who watch the videos don't like when other people make predictions, so they want to get back at you. You can defend yourself. Hop in the comments, make your opinions known. If you have questions, I will answer them. If you want long form answers, you want to have conversations, you want to chat with other members of the community, you want to pick the staff's brain, make sure you join our Discord server. It's for our members, occupyfantasy.com/discord. Link is in the description below. So that will do it for this video. Appreciate you watching as always, and good luck in tonight's Chargers Cowboys showdown slate.